Hello and welcome to another walk through history. And today we're looking at Gibraltar's oldest synagogue. And to show us around, we're meeting Mesod Belilo. And I think he's here. Hello, hi Mesod.
It's very nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
Welcome to Shaar Hashamayim Synagogue.
Wow, that's an interesting name. What does that mean?
Shaar Hashamayim is the Hebrew for the gate of heaven.
Ah, right. And there's a good name for the oldest synagogue in Gibraltar.
That's right, that's right. And there's a story behind it too.
So this synagogue dates back to then, or rather, when was the first synagogue ever built in Gibraltar?
Right, the first synagogue in Gibraltar was opened in 1724.
Right.
In this spot,
Yeah.
but it is not this same building. It was built in 1724, but unfortunately destroyed in a great storm in 1766.
Yeah.
And then it was rebuilt on a grander scale,
Yeah.
in the same spot,
Yeah.
but in a bigger way. The original entrance to the synagogue used to be through Surfetis Passage,
Right.
around the side,
Yeah.
which used to be known as Synagogue Lane.
Ah, I see.
But when they rebuilt it in a bigger scale after the storm, then they bought a property here giving onto Engineer Lane and made the main entrance through Engineer Lane.
Right. So do these wonderful arches date back to...
I imagine that these arabesques, decorations on the arches date back from the 1724 original building.
Now, how did the Jewish community get hold of this plot of land to build the synagogue? I mean, what's the story behind that? Because
Well, I think I'm going to have to go back a little bit further, no? You're probably aware that there were no Jews living in Spain since the expulsion in 1492. So that as soon as the British conquered Gibraltar, the first civilians to come over were probably Jews from Tetuan area, who were merchants and were able to supply the British garrison in Gibraltar.
Yeah.
By 1712, there was already quite a handful of them in Gibraltar, serving the needs of the garrison. And in 1713, you know, the famous Treaty of Utrecht,
this is it.
where Spain didn't mind so much ceding Gibraltar to Britain, but they made a condition that the British would not allow Jews and Moors to reside here.
That's it.
So
But they turned a blind eye to
they
that.
started to turn a blind eye to that, but by 1716, when the relations with Spain improved, the Spanish government started making lots of noises with the British government. And on one occasion, the British governor had to send the Jews out on a ship into the Bay of Gibraltar to be able to
Really?
confirm in his dispatch orders back to the government that, yes, he had got rid of the Jews, no Jews left here.
Goodness.
But then he
Gosh.
brought them back the next day. He was not really interested in getting rid of the Jews, not because he had any particular liking for them, but because he was pocketing all the licensing fees
Absolutely, yeah.
from the traders.
Yeah.
But shortly afterwards, the Spanish government put a lot of pressure on the British government, and Queen Anne herself actually sent an order to the governor of Gibraltar
Really? I didn't
to
know
expel the
that.
Jews. The Jews were expelled in 1717.
Gosh.
A couple of years later, fortunately for us, Britain and Spain were almost at war with each other again.
Yes.
Frontier
Yeah.
closed again.
Yeah.
Deja vu.
Yeah.
So Britain had to turn again to Morocco for their supplies. And they started negotiating with the Sultan of Morocco, whose treasurer was Jewish.
Right.
And he had been one of the original traders in Gibraltar. So he negotiated a trading treaty with Morocco, Britain with Morocco, whereby Britain would allow Jews and Moors to come and trade in Gibraltar and reside, and the Sultan of Morocco would give reciprocate rights to Britons in Morocco.
Yep.
So they came back in 1721
Right.
under the treaty.
Yep.
And a couple of years later, one of the Jewish merchants of Gibraltar by the name of Isaac Neto.
Right. Oh, I didn't realize Neto was a Jewish
Neto's a
name.
Jewish, yeah. He had not been born here, he was born in Leghorn, came here with his father. His father was then called to England, where he became the chief rabbi of the Spanish and Portuguese Jews.
Right.
But his son stayed here, and he was an important merchant, and he was given a plot of waste ground here by Lieutenant Colonel Hargraves. You know,
Right.
Hargraves
Yes. Yep.
to He was given this plot of land, and he built a synagogue here.
Right.
And this became the first synagogue to be built in the whole of the Iberian Peninsula
Gosh.
since 1492.
And the only one that's still standing, well, the oldest one in existence.
The oldest one in existence,
That's
yes.
fabulous. I mean, before there was a synagogue, I mean, Jews that were here temporarily or
They were probably praying
at their homes.
inside a private home.
Right.
But this became the first official
Right.
synagogue.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And because it's the oldest one, and there were subsequently 3 others that have been built,
Yep.
this has remained as the cathedral synagogue of the community.
Yes.
All communal functions are held in this one, even though it's not the biggest.
Right. Now, I believe you have a minister who luckily resides just here.
Yes.
Is that because this is the so-called cathedral of the synagogues in Gibraltar, or?
Not only because of that, because in the older days, all synagogues used to have their own full-time minister.
Right.
Nowadays, we are the only of the 4 synagogues that does have a full-time minister.
Yeah.
And we've had this apartment traditionally has been the residence of the minister.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other synagogues are now, the services are taken by lay people.
Right.
And perhaps I might explain that you don't have to be a qualified minister to be able to take the services.
Yeah.
Anybody who knows how to take the services can do so.
Yeah.
But of course, you want somebody with a nice voice, pleasant voice, and who knows the services properly.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we have a very, very good minister.
Fantastic. Well, I love the entrance, and obviously the staircase is also original, and there's always been a little patio here.
We've always
in
had this
Gibraltar tradition.
Yes, yeah. This old Andalusian type of wall tiles.
Are these old tiles as well? Or?
Not original, no. I think they're about 100 and 150 years old.
Okay.
And we are going to have some more made to fill up that part of the patio. Yeah.
Absolutely. Right, so perhaps we can
Yes,
go
if
inside.
I can tell you that that number up there, 5528, is the Jewish date, the Jewish year, which corresponds to 1768,
Right.
when the present the synagogue was built.
Right, 1768.
Yeah.
Wow.
And this synagogue, because it's one of the oldest standing buildings in Gibraltar, is one of the original listed buildings
Right.
for Gibraltar heritage. They're in the process of preparing a list of a lot more buildings, but this is an original listed building.
Great. So it has to be looked after very carefully.
Very carefully, yes, yes. Would you like to come
Can we
inside?
go? Please, thank you. Gosh, it's beautiful. And is it built in a particular style? Does it follow a particular trend, or?
I think that when it was built, it was imitating the mother synagogue of Isaac Neto, Isaac Neto's father, who was the chief rabbi of the Spanish and Portuguese Jews in England. And they had their own synagogue in the East End of London, Bevis Marks, which happens to be the oldest synagogue in England.
Oh, right.
Also. And that was called Shaar Hashamayim, and he named this one after it. And it's a similar style. It's different to Moroccan synagogues, although it has some Moroccan influence.
Yes.
But it's in the style of English architecture. If you look at the roof construction, you can see
Yes, the domes.
the domes.
Yeah.
We have the ladies' gallery upstairs, and we segregate the sexes during the services.
Yes, yes, I
You know
understand.
that.
Yes. And because I've noticed, are these benches original, or these have been bought by members over the years?
They are not the original benches of the
Right.
synagogue. These were donated by a family, a Surfati family of Gibraltar. I would imagine some 150 years ago.
Gosh.
And the original benches of the synagogue were promoted to the ladies' gallery. And we'll be able to see them a bit later on.
Definitely.
The story behind them. And you can see that each place has got a little name tag on it.
Yeah.
What happens is that to help maintain the upkeep of the synagogue, we pay a subscription, a monthly subscription, which entitles you to a seat.
Yes.
And normally people keep to the traditional benches of the family.
Absolutely, yeah.
The Belilo sit on that side, and we've been sitting over there for generations.
Yes. So whether you've got a good view or not, that's your spot.
That's right, yes.
And I've noticed, is that for collection for the synagogue or for Belidi?
More than that, it's a set of collection boxes. Where we have a couple of them are for the synagogue, some for the poor, some for the old people's home, some for charities in Israel. Some of them are now become defunct, the very old ones, but mostly you can see that this one is the most used one. You can see how worn the opening is, and that is for the poor. Yeah. And we always have a collection for the poor in every service.
Oh, that's fantastic. And obviously this tradition again dates back till the very first day the synagogue opened.
Yes, I'm sure that collecting during the services, except on Saturdays, because on Saturdays we don't handle money.
Yes.
So we don't make a collection. Yes. We have here in the middle the what we call the teva, which is the box from where the services are conducted, and the minister obviously officiates from the spot there in the middle. If it is interesting, if you were to draw the diagonals of this synagogue, right, yes, they would intersect at the spot where the minister serves from.
Oh, right. So that's obviously done purposefully.
It's done. Normally the reading desk, the teva, is at the back of the synagogue. Right. In fact, it's nearer the back than the front, but the position of the minister is spot on the middle of the synagogue.
Wow. Yeah. And again, this dates back to 1768?
This part of it is part of the original. Right. But we had, the original one was restored, we had to get rid of it. Yes, it just outlasted falling apart.
Yes.
And they made a larger one. Right. But they managed to salvage the little entrance balusters to it. Yeah.
Right. And the wood paneling and the doors as well?
This is quite old. The wood paneling is not old.
Right.
This is quite important. Then we have the Holy Ark at the front, which we call the Hechal. And that is where the scrolls of the law are kept.
Yes, that is the place that you're not allowed really to open and...
I'll give you a quick glimpse of it.
All right, that would be great.
It's the part where we keep the holy scrolls from which we read on Saturdays, on festivals, and since we cannot go 3 days without hearing the reading, we have a short reading on Mondays and Thursdays. Also. So today there was a reading.
So again, these scrolls do date back to the early 1700s?
Not really, no, because they have a lifespan.
Right.
They have to be written by hand, they have to be written on parchment, and they have to be perfect, I would say letter perfect.
Really?
If during the reading we were to discover that there's an error, a letter too short or a letter extra shouldn't be there, or two letters even touching each other, that invalidates the scroll. We have to close it, take out another one, and carry on reading from another. We are not allowed to read from a scroll that has become invalidated by the most minimum of it. Really? And that really is very, very important, because it's established the tradition of the text, not only for us in Gibraltar, but for Jews everywhere in the world and in every generation. So nobody can come along and say, no, that text should read like this, because you've got 99,000 other that say, no, the text is like this. This is the established text.
Yes, right.
So that is very important.
Right. So, but do you have any of the old scrolls?
We have one very old one. We have one which is 400 years old.
Gosh.
Which is written by hand by a famous rabbi who recorded in his published books, and in his books he said that he had written 3 in his lifetime. And we have the only surviving one.
Do you still read from that scroll?
No, because it's become invalidated now through time.
I see. Right, I'll just stand here on the side with you.
Yeah. We have a curtain cover over it.
Yes, of course.
Which I will now open.
Wow. Oh, they're beautiful.
We have two rows of scrolls. And sometimes there are occasions when you have to take out more than one, because there are readings from 2 different places, and exceptionally from 3 different places, and we would have to take out 3. But the scroll contains the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Pentateuch.
Yes, right.
Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and Numbers. or Numbers and Deuteronomy.
Yeah.
And we read the whole book in a yearly cycle.
Right.
So we start in one festival, which is in October,
Yeah.
and we start the reading and finish it the following year,
Wow.
and we start it again. So
Yes.
there's never an interruption.
Right.
So we have to scroll along as we go along.
Yes.
It's not a conventional book where you pass the pages.
No, of
it's a
course.
continuous scroll, and you just scroll and scroll. You can perhaps just about see the writing
Yes. Oh, yes.
there. It's written
And
by
obviously
hand.
all written in Hebrew.
In Hebrew, yes.
Yeah.
With the added complication that we don't have vowels.
Yeah. It's always a problem.
Hebrew
for...
is a different language to the Latin
Yes.
languages.
Yeah.
Where Latin you have vowels and consonants.
Yeah.
The Hebrew you only have consonants, and the vowels are little dots and dashes that are added to the letters above and below to tell you how to pronounce them. In the law, the vowels are not there, the punctuation marks are not there, so it's a tough
I can
job
imagine.
to be able to read from.
Well,
it.
it's a lifetime of study, certainly for
yes,
the rabbi and the priests and
And
ministers,
everybody, it's incumbent on every Jew to
Yeah.
study the Torah, which is law.
Yes.
And the Torah is the source of all the Talmudic studies. From the Torah have been written all the commentaries and the commentaries on the commentaries,
Yes, yeah.
which because you can't take the text of the Torah literally.
No. No.
You can't take it literally.
Yeah.
It's a very brief resume
Yeah.
of everything that should run our lives.
Yes.
And then we have the oral Torah, which was given to Moses at the same time as the written one,
Yeah.
explaining the written one.
Yes.
And that oral Torah eventually, over the centuries, was put into writing,
Yeah.
and it becomes what's called now the Talmud.
Yes.
So we study the Talmud,
Yeah.
which is a study of the oral Torah, which is an explanation of the written
Right.
Torah.
Oh, fascinating.
So the scrolls are covered in mantles.
I mean, have these mantles been donated by families
Yes,
over the
mostly,
years?
yes. We have some old embroidered one on the second row,
Beautiful. Yeah.
and these are more recent ones, which we use. Normally we don't take the embroidered ones, but
No.
but we use these more
And the
daily ones.
scrolls at the back as well are part of the Talmud or the Torah?
No, they're all the Torah,
They're
all exactly the same
right.
text. Yeah,
Oh, I see.
all the same text.
Why so many then of the same? Oh, it's the 5 books.
Yeah, they've all got exactly the same text in them. It's just that a scroll will have a 20-year, 30-year
Yes,
lifespan. After a while, it becomes very difficult to keep it corrected and carry out corrections to them. And then you just have to buy a new one.
Yeah.
And you have to have at least 4 or 5 valid ones
Yeah.
to be able to use over the
Absolutely.
year. Yeah. So they're decorated with a mantle. They've got a little plaque which says number 1,
Yeah.
first, second, third, so you know which one you have to take out first.
Yeah.
This one says Rosh Chodesh, which is the first of the month, because there's a special reading on the first of the month.
Right.
We have one for the Sabbath, which I think should be lying around here, which we put on the Sabbath. It's the
I
Shabbat here.
see.
We put that on the Sabbath. And they have a pointer,
Yes.
a hand pointer, which the minister uses as he reads from it. And they're also decorated with the rimonim, which are the bells.
They're beautiful. And the inscription up there is...
Well, there's just a symbolic representation of the tablets of the law,
Right.
but only the first 2 words of each of the...
Right.
It's just symbolic.
Right.
Here above the ark, there's a verse from the Bible
Right.
when Jacob had his dream
Yes.
of the angels going up and down the ladder to heaven.
Yeah.
And he woke up and he realized that he had seen a vision, and he called the place Shaar Hashamayim.
I see.
So-
Jacob's ladder. The famous
Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
And he called the place where he saw the
Right.
vision the gate to heaven,
Yes.
which is the name of the synagogue.
That's it, which is significant to this. That's fabulous. Thank you very much for showing us the
Okay.
scrolls. I know how important it is to keep them well guarded and put away.
Protected, because they could very easily get damaged, and we have to be very careful with them.
Now, is this area here used at all during the service, or just for the removal of the scrolls and
It has one other use, apart from when we take the scrolls out, and that is where the priests give their priestly blessing from.
right?
They come up here, and they cover themselves in the prayer shawls,
Yeah.
and they give a priestly blessing. Because I think I must explain to you what the
Yes,
role of the
go on.
priest is in the Jewish religion. A rabbi is a religious leader, and he has undertaken religious studies, rabbinical qualifications, to be able to lead the community and answer any religious problems that they may have, amongst other things. So a rabbi is just a person who has achieved the academic rabbinical qualification.
Yes.
The minister is a person who is knowledgeable in being able to direct the services.
Yeah.
So he's a different creature from the rabbi.
Yes. Yes.
And the priests in the Jewish religion are hereditary.
Right.
The priests were the Cohen family, direct descendants of Aaron, the high priest,
Yeah.
and they used to run the service of the temple in Jerusalem. Since we no longer have the temple,
No.
then the priest's role is very much reduced nowadays.
Yeah.
And one of the things they do is they give a priestly blessing from the top in front of the ark to the community. And whilst they're doing that, all the parents have their children with them, and they cover them with the prayer shawls.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's the Cohen family in Gibraltar who continue that role today?
That's right, yes.
Oh, that's great. And they're the only ones in Gibraltar allowed to
they are not the only Cohens in Gibraltar. There are a couple of other Cohens that also do it. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. That it really is. Now, I've noticed a lot of beautiful silverware. Now, do they have any interesting provenance?
Well, some of the silver is quite old, and only recently we had a specialist researcher in silver who came to Gibraltar, and we made his day, because he had been looking for this missing link in his researches of certain silversmiths, which he traced back to Gibraltar.
Gosh.
And he discovered that these two lamps here were made by him here in Gibraltar, which fitted the bill of something that he'd been looking for years.
Gosh, that's
so
great.
he's very surprised.
Yeah.
So some of this silver has been made in Gibraltar by Jewish and non-Jewish silversmiths.
Yes.
Some of it has come from outside Gibraltar, probably like this main lamp in the middle here.
Yeah.
That was donated by the Burgell family.
Right.
But it's not a particularly Jewish item. It's a beautiful piece of silverwork, but it's not particularly Jewish. These lamps are very Jewish. They were made specifically for a synagogue.
Yes.
And as I say, we used to use olive oil with them.
Olive oil, really?
But that's given way to wax, which is that's right, it's much cleaner, much cleaner. Yeah,
and then they were lit by gas, no doubt.
Yes, originally the lamps. No, originally they were olive oil. All the lamps were olive oil, and you see all the glasses from where the oil was put in the wick.
Similar to the lamps in churches. In
that way, yes. In that way, those are. Then, with the advent of gas to Gibraltar, the main lamps were converted to gas, and you see all these tubes where the gas used to come down to the lamps.
Right.
Then that gave way to electricity. Yeah. And the olive oil of the lamps gave way to wax. Yeah. Yes. Now, the significance of this one in the middle here is every synagogue has a lamp in front of the ark, which is supposed to be always lit 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In fact, it's a bit impractical to keep it lit, so we light it in the window there, and it's only on the Saturdays where we actually put the light on it.
That makes sense.
In this particular synagogue, for some inexplicable reason, we actually have three that are always supposed to be lit.
Gosh.
On Saturdays, they will be lit. During the week, we keep them on the window there, because otherwise going up and down every second day.
Imagine. What about the significance of these plaques in the wall, or those fairly modern
This
features?
one on the left here is just a commemorative plaque recognizing the work that all the people that partook in the construction of the synagogue and its vessels and everything.
Right.
That one there, it just collects a number of major donors. In olden time, we don't longer put names down.
No, it must be a little embarrassing for the donor.
It is nowadays. Here in Gibraltar, those are very old names. We have this imitation menorahs in the front here. You will see that they only have 6 branches and not 7.
Yes, I was going to say.
Because the candelabrum of the temple was 7, and we are not allowed to imitate anything that was in the temple. What was in the temple was for the temple
only.
And with the destruction of the temple, the synagogues took over the role, and they're called mini-temples. But we don't imitate the vessels of the temple, and you will see that we don't have any gold at all in the synagogue.
No, that is, again
was purely for the temple, and in the synagogues we only have silver and brass.
Well, the silver is just as beautiful. What about the significance of that on the wall.
Yes, I'll explain what that is. If you've ever attended a Jewish wedding,
Once a long, long time ago.
right, during the ceremony we have the wedding contract is
Yes.
read.
Right.
And it's traditional in Gibraltar, the wedding contract is handwritten on an illuminated parchment.
Right. Illuminated, right, with somebody holding...
No, colourful.
Right, yes,
Yeah,
yes. That's adorned and
That's
yes.
right, yeah. This one is a marriage contract, but it's a symbolic marriage contract. It is read during the Festival of Weeks, the Festival of Pentecost,
Right.
which is the date, the anniversary of the giving of the law in Mount Sinai to Israel. And it's symbolical of a wedding between Israel, the groom,
Yeah.
and the Torah, the bride.
Oh, right. Gosh.
And we read it during the
Fantastic.
festival.
Good.
This one is such an old one that with gold leaf and everything
yeah.
that we've just put it in a frame
Oh,
because it was just falling
absolutely.
apart and we
Yeah.
had a new one made.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. I mean, the work is very intricate. And do you have a date for it at all? Or-
I would imagine that's over 200 years old.
Really?
Now, yes. That was
Gosh.
over 200 years old.
And there's another one on the other side?
There's another one on the other side. I'll explain what that one is. There's a period between Passover and the Festival of Weeks, was Pentecost,
Right.
of 50 days.
Okay.
And that's really what gives the name of Pentecost to the
Yes,
festival.
right, yes.
Pente
Pente
is Greek for 50.
Yeah.
So we have an obligation to count the days between Passover and Pentecost. Starting with the first day of Passover, we count day 1, day 2, day 3.
Yeah.
So instead of a countdown, it's a count
That's
up.
Right.
Because we're supposed to be increasing our spirituality
Yeah.
during that period. Because Passover was when the Jews came out of Egypt
Yes.
from the depth of slavery
Yes.
and idol worshipping,
Yes.
and they had to improve themselves during 49 days
Yes.
to arrive at the spiritual level to be able to receive the law in Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
So we relive that ceremony during the 49 days between. We're on day
Right.
21 now, as you can
Oh,
see.
there we go.
Now, but handwritten throughout the picture, in different colors and in different sizes and
Beautiful.
shapes, is the whole of the book of Psalms.
Gosh, that's amazing.
You can see different
Gosh,
lines.
even this little bit here, that's just tiny.
Yes, yes, it's all handwriting, yeah.
all
The whole of the
handwriting.
book of Psalms is
It's
in that
amazing.
picture.
And do you know who wrote this? Or
It's actually signed by somebody.
does it have a
It's got a name there, but I don't think
Date.
it's got a date. Oh, I can't make it out.
difficult
It's
to
difficult to make out, yeah.
But it's
Again, it must be a
work.
couple of 100 years old. Yeah.
It's amazing. Right, so this is the ladies' gallery.
This is the ladies' gallery,
Yeah.
yes.
And a fine gallery it is.
It
too.
is. If you go down the front here,
Thank
you can see like downstairs, each lady has got her own place name on
Yeah.
the seats.
Yeah.
Now these are the original benches
They're
of the synagogue.
beautiful.
They're made from pitch pine, the old pine timber. And as you can see, in some of them we still have the original crown and Castle of Castilla. So
Right.
these benches are Spanish and I'm sure predate the conquest, the British conquest of Gibraltar. I imagine they must be about 350 years old.
And in such good condition as well. They're
Yes, we've had them
fantastic.
scraped and varnished, and if you try lifting one of these, it really takes a lot.
Oh yeah.
You would have That's real wood.
Gosh,
That's real
definitely.
wood.
They're beautiful.
So
Now-
the ladies have a great view of the proceedings, but they don't participate in the
Yeah.
proceedings because the services, Jewish services, are the domain of the males.
Yes. Yes.
In fact, what we have is 3 services a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the evening.
Yeah.
But what we do is we combine the afternoon with the evening one in one continuous
Yeah.
service, and that means that we only have to come to synagogue twice a day.
Yes. Yes.
But ladies are not obliged to, and they don't normally come except on Saturdays and
Yes.
festivals.
Mesod, I noticed there are quite a few windows upstairs and downstairs. Is that significant?
In a way it is, yes. We have between the ones that are upstairs and those downstairs a total of 12 windows,
Right.
which is traditional of the design of synagogues, to have one to represent each of the 12 tribes.
Right.
It is also traditional to have a window on the east wall, which is that one there.
Yeah.
As you can see, our ark, our synagogue, is orientated towards the east.
Yeah.
And that's because Jerusalem is to the east of Gibraltar. So
Yeah.
all synagogues in the world
Yeah.
are orientated towards Jerusalem. We did have an original window here on the east wall, but it had to be blocked up because they built a building behind it.
Yeah.
And it's inside the roof void there.
Right.
It's still inside there.
Gosh.
So what we've done is, in its place, we painted like a sky scene,
Yes.
almost as if there were a window there.
Yep, good idea. And what about the number of lamps? Are they significant?
Well, somebody did a study into the design of this synagogue, and there are 10 main lamps, and he reckoned that they are there for a reason to follow the symbolism of the Kabbalah, where there are 10 sephirot, which are the attributes of God, and each of the lamp represents one of these attributes.
Yeah.
And then we have the little oil lamps, which are now candle lamps, that go around the perimeter of the gallery, and there's 22 of them, and again symbolic of the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet.
Right.
So everything has a symbolism
Yeah.
in the synagogue.
Gosh. Now, I have to end very soon, but why a crown? It's been... I've been curious about it from the moment we walked
Yes.
in. It
Yeah.
looks out of place, actually.
Yes, well, synagogue design, as you have probably noticed, does not have any human representation or
Yeah.
even animal representations, but there are some symbolic items, for example, like the pine cones. You have pine cones in synagogue design. The crown represents, in the Jewish religion, there are 3 crowns. There's the crown of the kingdom of David, there's the crown of the priesthood,
Right,
which we no longer have
right.
because there's no temple,
Yeah.
and there's the crown of the Torah. The Torah is a crown over us.
Right.
In Gibraltar, the Jewish population of Gibraltar, in common with the rest of the population of Gibraltar, were very British, have made sure that the crown that they present in the Torah looks like a very British crown, and you can see that. In fact, all our marriage contracts
Right.
have got a crown on them in Gibraltar.
Gosh. So, and that is the crown of the Torah?
It's a crown of the Torah. It's actually said, Keter Torah, the crown of Torah.
Fascinating. Well, Mesod, it's been really interesting. Thank you very much for showing us around. I think very few people, well, non-Jews have been in here, and they'll be thrilled to see it.
A pleasure. You're welcome whenever you want to come.
Thank you very much. And
you.
next year, perhaps we can visit another of your synagogues.
Perhaps you like, yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.